Behind every crime, there's a dark story waiting to be uncovered. From brutal murders and mysterious disappearances to serial killers and chilling conspiracies, we dive deep into the real cases that shocked the world and left behind unanswered questions. Some mysteries were solved, and some were covered up, and some still haunt the world today. Welcome to World of Crime. I'm your host Prohit Sil, and today we will be exploring the story of Jack the Ripper. London, 1888. The British Empire sat at the height of its power. Gas lamps lit grand boulevards. Gentlemen in top hats stepped out of carriages into candlelit dining rooms. That was one London. There was another. 3 miles east of Buckingham Palace was Whitechapel, a world entirely apart. Nearly 1 million people crammed into crumbling tenements. Immigrants, dock workers, slaughterhousemen, women who had lost everything: husbands, health, hope, and survived the only way they had left. This is the world into which Jack the Ripper was born, and this is the world in which 5 women died. Her name was Mary Ann Nichols. Everyone called her Polly. She was 43 years old. 5 children, a life worn down by poverty and drink. On the night of August the 13th, 1888, she was turned away from her lodging house at 18 Thrall Street. She didn't have the 4 pence. She laughed about her bonnet and walked back into the night. At 3:40 in the morning, a carman named Charles Cross found her body in Bucks Row. She had been strangled, her throat cut twice. She had been dead less than 30 minutes. No one had heard a sound. 8 days later, Annie Chapman, 47 years old, generous even when she had nothing, found dead in the yard of 29 Hanbury Street. Killed the same way, but this time the killer had removed organs in the dark in under 2 hours. 2 women, the same method, the same deliberate, terrible precision. The East End began to talk. The newspapers began to listen. Inspector Frederick Abeline, a veteran who knew Whitechapel better than almost anyone, was brought in to lead the investigation. The killer left nothing behind. September 30th, 1888. The Ripper killed twice that night. Elizabeth Stride, long Liz, was found just after 1 in the morning in Dutfield's yard. Her throat had been cut, but nothing more. A man arriving with a horse and cart had inadvertently interrupted the killer. The Ripper had been disturbed, and instead of fleeing, he found someone else. 45 minutes later, less than a mile away, Catherine Eddowes, 46 years old, found in Mitre Square. She had spent the earlier part of the evening in police custody, drunk, and had been released at 1 in the morning with a cheerful wave. She walked directly into the path of the man who would kill her. What was done to her shocked even hardened officers. The killer had taken his time in an open square with police patrols passing every 15 minutes. He had not been seen, not by a single witness. Near the scene, police found a piece of her apron, used to wipe a blade, written above it in chalk. The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing. The Metropolitan Police Commissioner ordered it wiped away before dawn, fearing it would incite riots against the Jewish community. His decision destroyed what might have been the only physical evidence the Ripper ever left behind. Around this time, a letter arrived at the Central News Agency. It began, "Dear boss, I keep on hearing the police have caught me, but they won't fix me just yet." It was signed Jack the Ripper. The name had not existed before that letter. That letter created it. Most historians today believe the original letter was a hoax, likely written by a journalist. But then came a package addressed to George Lusk of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee. containing half a preserved human kidney. A note read, in part, I send you half the kidney I took from one woman. The other piece I fried and ate. It was very nice. A doctor concluded the kidney belonged to a woman around 45 years of age, removed from a living body no more than 3 weeks prior. Catherine Eddowes had been 46. Her left kidney had been taken by her killer. The kidney is harder to dismiss. The final murder took place on the 9th of November, 1888. Mary Jane Kelly was 25 years old, Irish-born, reportedly beautiful, someone who could sing and sometimes did. In the courts and alleys of Whitechapel, for a few coins and a kind word. She had a room, a real room, at 13 Miller's Court. She was killed in that room. The killer had privacy, warmth, time, and he used every minute of it. After Mary Jane Kelly, the murders stopped. Over 200 individuals have been seriously proposed as Jack the Ripper. Montague John Truitt, a barrister whose body was found floating in the Thames the following December. Aaron Kospinski, a Polish-Jewish immigrant whose DNA was controversially linked to the Eddowes scene in 2014, a claim disputed by scientists to this day. Francis Tumbletti, an American quack doctor with a pathological hatred of women who fled England before he could be questioned. None of them have ever been proven. Inspector Aberline, the man who walked those streets for months, never publicly named who he believed the killer was. Late in his life, he told a journalist he had his theories. He declined to share them. He took them to his grave in 1929. 135 years have passed. New books are published every year. New suspects are named. The case will not die. Why? Partly the mystery, partly the era, the fog, the gas lamps, the gothic theater of a Victorian murder that feels, even now, cinematic. But there is something else. The Ripper case holds a mirror up to something we do not like to see. The women of Whitechapel were not considered worth protecting. Not truly, not by the same systems of power that surrounded them. They were invisible until they were dead. And even then, what many people wanted most was the story of the killer, the monster, the mystery, not the women. Not Polly, who laughed about her bonnet on the last night of her life. Not Annie, who was generous even when she had nothing. Not Elizabeth, who had crossed an ocean and made a life. Not Catherine, who waved cheerfully at a police officer and walked into the dark. Not Mary Jane, who could sing. Their cases have never been officially closed. Their names deserve to be spoken. This has been World of Crime. Join us next week when we turn to another case that changed how the world understood evil. Until then, stay curious, stay careful, remember the ones history forgot, and keep watching News Ei Samay.